Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, crntalk.com, facebook.com/crntalk, talking about this Monsanto verdict, $2 billion. And what I was saying before the break, Richard, is that this becomes almost a moot victory for the plaintiffs, because let's say they were awarded $100 million, maybe $50 million, even $20 million. Monsanto, as a multinational conglomerate and corporation, they would probably pay that. With a $2 billion judgment, that now the company's fighting for their fiscal lives, and now what this means is this is going to be drawn out even longer on appeal.
And as we said, Mike, the other problem is causation itself. In other words, unless the jury was able to, in their own minds, isolate or eliminate all other possible causes. In other words, people get cancer, I'm sorry to say, all the time, having nothing to do with this particular Monsanto product or other products. We still don't know exactly what causes cancer. So for the attorneys to have isolated in this particular case and eliminated all other causes, I find that kind of rare. And so I think a lot of it is emotion and just plain feelings for these poor individuals.
You know, we were talking before, and because you have such a depth of a scientific background, it's got to be kind of hard for you to see the way that the modern kind of justice system works now, where emotion kind of rules out facts in the courtroom.
Well, it's always been that way, I'm afraid. And again, when we were in law school, we argue. Some people would say, isn't there a better way to compensate a person that's been hurt by somebody else or a big company? And there isn't. What else are you going to do besides putting these people in prison or awarding money that might hurt them? But again, there's a lot of wisdom in what you said, that the amount of punishment should be reasonable if you really want to settle this matter. And if it's too unreasonable, like I think in this case, it's just going to litigate, or they're just going to go bankrupt, one or the other.
I was actually talking to a listener of this show, and we were kind of conversing back and forth on Facebook, and she brought up an interesting point about what if we take the punitive damages, whoever the jury determines that, and take that out of their hands and give that to maybe a 3-panel judge or some sort of different mechanism where there's more less emotion in that judgment.
Yes. Well, again, but as we said earlier, that has already been taken out for any case. Punitive damages cannot exceed, I want to say, 9 times compensatory. So whatever actual out-of-pocket medical bills, time off work, all that stuff, if you add that all up, whatever that number is, the punitive damages cannot be more than 9 times. And I suspect that in this case, it is way over 9 times, and the Supreme Court, if not some of the lower court, is going to reduce that.
But it's going to take years for them to get to that point. And
well, what can happen, Mike, is one side will simply say, look, you either reduce it or we're going to go for a new trial.
Yeah.
So normally, well, it's a trade-off between what the client wants and what the attorneys want, and so on.
And it's very interesting. We're going to be following this case moving forward, I'm sure. This next one was a big news story all over the media in the past week or so. This is a decision out of the Ninth Circuit, and we've talked about this case before. The full name of the case is quite long, so I'll just give you a brief one. It's the Innovation Law Lab Central American Resource Center for Northern California et al. Versus Kevin McAllen, Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Department of DHS, and other government agencies.
Government asylum. I think you got it right there, Mike.
I think so. There you go. Chief of Asylum Division, U.S. Citizens and Immigration Services in his official capacity. This is a case we've talked about before. This was pretty much the basic is that the Trump administration, they enacted a policy where asylum seekers, those who come into this country illegally but yet seeking asylum, would have to stay either A, in their country of origin, or B, at the border in Mexico or in Canada while their asylum is being processed. And there was initially a stay on that issue before DHS Secretary Nixon was separated from the White House. There was a stay on that order, but now the Ninth Circuit, in a pretty shocking decision, overturned that stay, greenlighting the administration to continue with this policy. Richard, what do you think about this Trump administration victory?
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory, because even though the 3-judge panel here agreed with a known conservative, Justice O'Scanlan, and ruled, if you will, in favor of the Trump administration, They did it because they felt that the lower court district judge, Richard Seaborg, had exceeded his authority in when he granted this so-called injunction. It included everybody in the world, and the courts have said several times that you must consider relief that a court gives in terms of not going too far or too narrow. And so if you read the case, which I have, you'll see that they were not really enthusiastic about O'Scanlan's dissertation, but because Seaborg was so out of touch, if you will, they ruled in favor of Mr. Trump.
And just to get kind of in the weeds of this case, because it's pretty interesting, this is the way it works. There's a particular statute by the DHS, a protocol known as the MPP, the Migrant Protection Protocol, which directs the return of certain asylum applicants who arrive from Mexico as a substitute to the traditional options of detention and parole. And there's two separate categorizations. There's the A and the B, Richard. And can you give us a background on the A and the B? Because this is in regards to asylum seekers.
Yes. Well, again, from what I understand is when people appear at the southern border in this particular case, if there's either an expedited or a regular type hearing, and if the person does not present himself with documents and so on, the expedited hearing would suggest that they be returned to the other side of the border. However, if they mention the word asylum, then they're put in and have been put in a special category. And the only thing that we could do, if you will, the HUD or the DHS people could do, is either detain them here somewhere or release them into the community called a parole. Mm-hmm. And what's happened in this particular case, the Trump administration has, by executive order, have said, we want to be able to remove those people to Mexico, like we can. If a person comes here and does not mention asylum, he can be removed to Mexico while his removal proceeding is proceeding.
Mm-hmm. So what stops an immigrant at the border saying, hey, are you accepting asylum? Are you requesting asylum? And the immigrant saying no. And they're like, okay, you can't come in. But then the immigrant says, oh, well, maybe I am accepting asylum. That's a little bit weird.
It is, and again, we get back to our old buddy due process. Some people have said if the officer at the border asks a person if they're asking for asylum and they say no, that is their due process. He had a hearing and he explained himself. And on the other hand, again, this is, as I said, it might be a Pyrrhic victory here again because the other two less than serious about going along with O'Scanlan here said, once we have a full-blood hearing on this thing, we're probably going to rule against Trump.
That's going to be interesting. I want to talk a little bit more after this break because this is a pretty important case and there's some interesting implications about the law and about immigration. We're going to talk about it, guys. So stick around. We're in the Legal Lounge, Sierra Digital Talk Radio. Richard Nixon live. Give us a call, 818-818-6401, or shoot Richard an email, richardnixon@sierratalk.com.
Were you scammed into signing a timeshare contract? And did you miss the part that said you have to pay for your great idea? Not only for the rest of your life, but when you're not here anymore, you get to pass this turkey onto your family for them to pay for the rest of their lives. Thanks, Dad. Don't burden your family down the road, and don't be stuck with expensive timeshare payments forever. Get out of your bad idea timeshare contract guaranteed, or pay nothing. Call Resort Release today and learn for free how their timeshare exit team can help you legally exit your timeshare contract. They've helped thousands of people, and they're A+ rated with a BBB. So if you feel scammed, get mad and get out of your expensive timeshare contract right now, guaranteed. Call NOW.
800-716-9903. 800-716-9903. 800-716-9903. That's 800-716-9903.
1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. And while most people only think of the physical effects, there's something else that occurs in 98% of all cases. Vicki Dingus, Senior Vice President, Corporate Responsibility at Allstate.
Financial abuse is an invisible weapon used by abusers to control their victims. It's the number one reason women stay in or return to abusive relationships. When denied access to money, banks, even jobs, women feel powerless to care for themselves and their children.
Despite the major role financial abuse plays in domestic violence cases, local domestic violence programs strain to provide financial services to survivors. That's why the Allstate Foundation developed a curriculum 10 years ago to help domestic violence survivors regain their financial independence.
The Allstate Foundation's Moving Ahead curriculum has helped nearly 800,000 survivors rebuild their lives. It's free and available online and through domestic violence programs across the country.
For more information or to get help, visit the Allstate Foundation's website, purplepurse.com.
You order a glass of your favorite Cabernet, fresh asparagus, hollandaise on the side, a filet, medium rare. You unfurl your napkin with a flair, close your eyes, and prepare to listen. Ah, there it is. The sweet music you long to hear. The sizzle. The sizzle of a Ruth's Chris steak.
The most magnificent corn-fed prime beef, broiled to perfection at 1,800 degrees. Some call it a sizzle. We call it an anthem.
As the waiter approaches, you think, is this one mine or that one?
Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Like Ruth always said, life's too short to eat anywhere else.
Make a reservation online at ruthschris.com or by calling 800-544-0808.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, Senior Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, talking about this recent decision out of the Ninth Circuit regarding asylum seekers at the border. The Trump administration got their wish. The asylum seekers are now required to stay at the border while their asylum is being processed while it's pending. And one of the concurring opinions, Judge Watford brought up an interesting point. The big basis of the government before regarding asylum seekers is the principle of non-refoulement. Non-refoulement is a term of art which describes a process of law which says that the United States cannot return an alien who was requested asylum to their country of origin if they suspect that that alien will be subject to persecution. And one thing, Richard, he said it in a way that it just really struck so clear to me, is that once the majority of these asylum seekers are coming from Guatemala and El Salvador and other various Central American countries, once they arrive in Mexico,
yes,
that's asylum right there, right?
That's exactly. They've satisfied their need for asylum at that point. And that's why, as so many people have said, that when they come here and ask for asylum, they're just gaming the system. And I'm hoping that for some reason O'Scanlan's view will prevail, but it looks like Fletcher's argument, basically he's really cutting and dicing the two different pathways here. He seems to be correct technically. On the other hand, if the court takes the view that what are we trying to do? Are we trying to isolate or treat one group better than another? The one group that we're treating better right now is the group that might commit fraud and misrepresentation by having false documents. We're not being permitted to send those people back to Mexico, but some guy who just shows up here illegally, so to speak, and has nothing else illegal, he is immediately returned. And some people would say that's backward.
And there's another issue to take into account here regarding congressional intent. Congressional intent, because a lot of these policies, these immigration policies are codified out of congressional law. And of course, like many other issues regarding the law and regarding Congress,
right,
you can't put everything on paper that's going to happen. And so you really have to take the law as written and as implied.
That's right.
And so do you think that the asylum policies codified by law are being sort of taken advantage of by statutes as written as implied?
Exactly, and I think that's what O'Scanlan's trying to get at here, is that it's clear what Congress meant. They meant to give, at least the administration meant, to give the administration, the president, proper tools in order to stem the tide of illegal immigration. I don't think there's any question that Congress had that as an intent, and therefore distinguishing one group from another is probably unwise.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is happening. There's two different classes now, and it becomes just a matter of logic that
Absolutely.
You just declare asylum, and then you've kind of gamed the system, like you said.
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting, and we're going to be following this case moving forward as well, because like you said, Richard, this is probably going to end up in the Supreme Court. So we're going to be following this, you guys. I want to move on. This is Richard brought this to my attention as well. This is regarding Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Joe Arpaio, he was the sheriff of Maricopa County, and he was facing all sorts of different lawsuits from different advocacy groups over his treatment of Latinos, and he was convicted, I believe. He wasn't necessarily, yeah, he was convicted of criminal contempt of court in 2017 for violating court orders regarding that litigation concerning the protection of constitutional rights of immigrants. President Trump then pardoned Mr. Arpaio, but now Mr. Arpaio is seeking to use that pardon for vacating his conviction. This is what's really confusing to me, because I thought a pardon was vacating a conviction.
Well, okay, to start with, Arpaio's criminal contempt verdict came in 2017 after a federal judge in Arizona ordered the then sheriff to stop making immigration arrests and targeting Latinos during traffic stops. He didn't stop, and the U.S. District Judge Susan R. Bolton, B-O-L-T-O-N, found Arpaio guilty of criminal contempt. But the issue is that before judgment was entered in the case, President Trump pardoned the sheriff, saving him from the possibility of jail time. And that's kind of what created the problem here, that instead of waiting for him to be convicted, the president, if you will, or his people kind of jumped the gun. Maybe it was based on Arpaio's request, I don't know, but it's created a unique situation here. But as you said, Mike, it seems to me that pardoning the person is equivalent to having taken the conviction off the record. The judgment was never entered. Now, there's a two-step process here. The judge declares you guilty, but then the next step is to actually put it in a paper somewhere.
I see. Okay.
And so in between those two steps is where Trump got in. So I don't have much hope that that the judiciary is arguing that Trump should not have absolute power to pardon Arpaio.
I want to talk more about presidential pardons and the powers therein right after the break. You guys stick around. We're here in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon Live, CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Fred Dreyer telling you about my favorite Italian restaurant. It's Angelo's and Vinci's in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's has the best pasta, the best seafood, the best salad, spaghetti, lasagna, and the most incredible pizza. And the chicken is delicious. Marsala, piccata, cacciatore, parmigiana, and more. For desserts, try our spumoni or our tiramisu, my favorite, flown in fresh from Italy. And the cannolis and the zeppolis are out of this world. Open for lunch and dinner. And don't miss the Sunday champagne brunch. Just $23.95. Are you kidding me? It's all up the road from Disneyland at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Angelo's and Vinci's, like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. Call 714-879-4022 or visit us online at angeloandvincis.com.
The smartest way for you to get the lowest prices on your plane tickets, domestic or international, is to call SmartFares first or last, but you've got to call us before you book your plane tickets. Fly anywhere in the world, fly anywhere in the U.S., and SmartFares can save you up to 75% on your plane tickets. We have the lowest airline ticket prices on over 500 airlines, and you've got a great 12-hour free cancellation window. Plus, with our live agent help, you can always get fast help and fast answers. So on your next trip, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, how about right now? Pick up your phone and call SmartFares, plus save up to 75% on your plane reservation. So call right now. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644.
Balance of Nature's fruit and veggie capsules contain 100% fine-ripened fruits and vegetables, tested pure with no pesticides, fillers, or additives of any kind, and are the most effective whole food supplements on the market today. You might ask, how can over 10 servings of 31 different fruits and vegetables fit into 6 vegetarian capsules? Fruits and vegetables are on an average 85% water. Balance of Nature uses cold vacuum technology to remove the water, leaving only the whole food. We don't use any heat, air, or light drying methods that damage nutrients. Our cold vacuum technology maintains 99% of the fresh fruits and vegetables' original nutritional value. Along with diet and exercise, Mother Nature provides fruits and vegetables to help us maintain good health.
To order, go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751. That's 1-800-246-8751 and use discount code FLASH.
Imagine this is your money and someone wants to take it from you. Who is it? The IRS. They want your money, and guess what? They can legally take it, all of it if they want. Remember, they sent you that letter that said, hey, you owe us a bunch of cash and we're going to take it from you. So what do? Fight back by letting our team of experts at the Tax Helpline work it out with the IRS so you can keep your money. And we're good at what we do. When you hire us, you get a team of guys on your side that know the IRS laws and will fight to save your money. So if you owe the IRS a ton of cash and you want to keep it, call right now and learn for free how we can help you put it back in your pocket.
800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. 800-932-1597. That's 800-932-1597.
And we are back here in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon live, Sierra Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, talking about Joe Arpaio, pardoned, former sheriff of Maricopa County, pardoned by President Donald Trump. And this leads us into a broader discussion on what powers, presidential powers of pardon, do they have? And this is a very, very interesting theory of law, the pardon, and there's some interesting case law behind this, specifically Grossman, Grossman et al., 1925. This is a case that's commonly cited in pardon cases. Richard, give us the background here.
In 1925, the justices unanimously ruled that Calvin Coolidge, President Calvin Coolidge, acted well within the strictures of his authority to grant clemency to a speakeasy owner, convicted of failing to comply with a court order prohibiting him from selling alcohol in his illicit bar. The name of the case is Ex parte Grossman, 1925. And again, but what all good attorneys do, in this case, no less than Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe is arguing that that case really doesn't apply because that case was, if you will, only applied to the owner of that speakeasy. And in this case, we're talking about people that Arpaio, if you will, defamed somehow, or at least violated their constitutional rights. So they don't want to follow that case, where the administration does, of course. I think I come down on the side of the administration for one reason, because the best argument the judiciary has is you can't take this power away from the court. We have already ruled that this guy is in contempt, and the only thing we can do in contempt, since we can't assess money against him, is to order him to stop. And if you take that power away from us, we're powerless. Well, yes, that's exactly right. In fact, that's what the Constitution contemplated, that there would be instances where the president could overrule a judicial decision, regardless of whether the decision was proper or improper. So again, I think that the judiciary's argument, if you will, at least as far as I'm concerned, should fall on deaf ears.
And there's a great quote regarding what you just said, Richard, from the Chief Justice in this case, Justice Taft, regarding the presidential power of pardon. He says, quote, "The administration of justice by the courts is not necessarily always wise or certainly considerate of circumstances which may properly mitigate guilt. To afford a remedy, it has always been thought essential in popular governments as well as in monarchies to vest in some other authority than the courts power to ameliorate or avoid particular criminal judgments. It's a check entrusted to the executive for special cases. To exercise it to the extent or of destroying the detrimental effect of judicial punishment would be to prevent it. But, and this is key right here, but whoever makes it useful must have full discretion to exercise it. Our Constitution confers this discretion on the highest officer in the nation in confidence that he will not abuse it, and that officer is the President of the United States."
Yes, and again, we get back to the old cliche about checks and balances. This is just one more situation where the court is in charge with the proceeding before it to issue punishment and so on. However, we allow the executive, including executives in the states, to grant pardons if they feel for some reason and for no reason that the conviction or punishment should be undone.
And let me ask you this, Richard. I'm going to throw a wild card at you. There's been a lot of talk on the left about, Donald Trump and his criminal culpability in certain things. Can the president pardon himself?
Well, that's how this article actually started. There's so much talk about his self-pardon. I would think so, because again, the Constitution is very scant. There's just a few words about granting a pardon. It doesn't exclude a self-pardon. So frankly, I would like to do a little more research on that point. Unless, Mike, you want to put your crack research staff to work on it as well. But anyway, I think, just off the top of my head, I think he could pardon himself.
And the presidential pardon, it has been somewhat controversial in the past. I remember Bill Clinton got in hot water for pardoning Mr. Braswell, a nutritional supplement magnate who was also a big contributor to his campaign, and his brother, Roger Clinton Jr., after serving a year in federal prison for cocaine possession. This is pretty egregious. I mean, pardoning your own brother for a cocaine conviction. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, it's interesting. It was after he served his time, right?
That's correct, yeah. He not only did Clinton pardon his brother, he pardoned Patty Hearst, the famous Patty Hearst.
There was someone else whose name I can't remember. I want to say it sounded like Rice. He was clearly kind of the mafia type, but had done a lot of bad things, and he was pardoned. But again, this is what would give rise to impeachment then. In other words, if you've got a runaway president who's pardoning all these bad people, that would be grounds for impeachment.
Mm-hmm. But that's congressional action, though. What Mr. Tribune is here, they're trying to file amicus briefs to injunct this pardon for Arpaio, which seems to be out of bounds from the way that's set up.
I would think so. I think Trump's in good shape on this one.
We're going to be following this case especially closely because it's very, very interesting. Moving on next, this is kind of a fascinating one. We're going to get into this after the break, too. This is considered the False Claims Act, a.k.a. the Lincoln Law. Before we head to break, Richard, can you give us what is the False Claims Act, the Federal False Claims Act?
Well, as I understand it, it's a situation where the government is alleging that someone has cheated the government out of different things. In this particular case, there was a food supplement that was, again, coming from China, was dumped on our shores, wasn't declared, and because it wasn't declared, it was here much cheaper. And when they finally sold this food supplement, made millions. And the government wasn't interested in pursuing this themselves, but other people taking the government's side decided to go ahead and sue because they thought the government was cheated.
Mm-hmm. And so this case kind of leads into a specific case that Richard's been following quite closely, and it talks about the rules of evidence, it talks about jury instructions, and it kind of has a pretty happy ending, if you ask me, for this particular case, because this judge in this particular case we're going to discuss right after the break, his conduct, in my personal opinion, seems a little bit out of bounds. So we're going to touch on that right after the break. You guys stick around. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge, CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. Drop Richard a note. Richard Nixon at CRNTalk.com. And any vets out there, Richard is a vet, thank you, sir. And any vets out there who knew Richard, who served with him during his time in the Army, 1963, 1965, or his time in Vietnam as a contractor in 1968, give us a call here at the office, 818-818-6400, because we'd love to connect vets, and we'll provide you with a free copy of Richard's fantastic book, America, An Illusion of Freedom, also available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and as well as on iTunes.
Thank you for that, Mike.
Stay with us, you guys.
The following ad contains shocking material. Listener discretion is advised. Is someone in your family playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette? Over 43,000 people die a year from drug overdose. 120 people a day. 5 people every hour. 1 person every 12 minutes. 88,000 people die every year from alcohol abuse. Over 240 people a day. 10 an hour. 1 person every 6 minutes. Somebody you know may be next. Learn how to help someone you love get away from the drugs, alcohol, and bad influences. With the FMLA, people can take a leave of absence from their job and still keep it. Call Quit Drugs 321 now at 800-378-3315, 800-378-3315, 800-378-3315. That's 800-378-3315.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
And we are back. Richard Nixon live here in the Legal Lounge. CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, Facebook.com/CRN Talk. Talking about this False Claims Act. There's a particular case, I believe the defendant was named David Lee. And he was involved in a supplement company regarding glycine. And more importantly, for the purpose of our discussion, during the trial, this defendant pleaded the Fifth Amendment 100 times. And that seems like a lot, but the judge in this particular case, he gave the jury some very, very interesting instructions regarding not only the Fifth Amendment, but also other felonies that this particular defendant was convicted of. Richard, give us the background here and why this judge might be overstepping a bit.
Well, we have U.S. District Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald gave or read certain jury instructions directly to the jury. And one of them is that you have heard that David J.I. has been convicted of a felony. And Fitzgerald went on to say that this conviction may be considered along with all the other evidence in deciding on whether or not to believe David J. and how much weight to give his testimony, and for no other reason. So the court gave that instruction. Obviously, it was probably suggested by the plaintiff's attorney. The other instruction he gave, which I found surprising, is that that Tony Hang, the defendant, declined to answer certain testimonies on the grounds of the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. And the judge went on to say that you are permitted, but not required, to draw the inference that the withheld information would have been unfavorable to Tony Hang. And I think you found some information or a case that basically talks about a similar thing.
Yeah, and this is a case of Carter versus Kentucky out of the Supreme Court, 1981,
Yes.
and it pretty much contradicts exactly what that judge says. It says a petitioner Pretty much. It says that a petitioner has a right to request instruction under the privilege against compulsory self-incrimination of the Fifth Amendment as made applicable by the states by the 14th Amendment. A state trial judge having a constitutional obligation upon proper request to minimize the danger that the jury will give evidentiary weight to a defendant's failure to testify. And what this judge did in this particular case that you found, Richard, he did give weight. He gave a ton of weight to the fact that this person claimed the Fifth Amendment.
But remember now, that Supreme Court decision does not say that you cannot give that instruction, the instruction that Fitzgerald gave, and it doesn't say that you must give the instruction protecting the defendant. It simply says it's up to the defendant's attorney to request that instruction. Now, again, this article that we're reading, I wasn't present at the trial. I don't know if the proper instruction was given regarding the Carter case in this case, but had it not been, had the other side not mentioned it, it would have been malpractice not to do that. But it all had, I think, what you would call a pleasant ending anyway, didn't it, Mike?
Yes, sir, because the particular defendants in the case that you were citing were acquitted, even though that the defendant claimed the Fifth Amendment over 100 times. So it seems like the jury saw through what the judge was trying to do.
It would seem that way, and also it looks as though, I don't know whether the judge was showing his obvious bias against the defendant. But again, those instructions that the judge read, I would think were requested by the plaintiff's attorneys. And they're certainly legitimate jury instructions. And the article is not complete because it's very possible that he did give the other instructions that would have been warranted by the Carter versus Kentucky case.
But I mean, we talked about this earlier, Richard, about the Monsanto verdict. I mean, are we really requiring juries to do too much? I mean, are we really expecting juries to understand all these technical rules of evidence and whatnot, and to disavow certain things? Like whenever I'm watching Law and Order or those television shows, the defense counsel or whatever, which either counsel from each side will say something completely outrageous, and the judge will, objection sustained. Are we? And the jury is assumed to disregard those remarks, but really, can we expect juries to disregard those remarks? I mean, they've been said in open court.
No, that's right. And the way some attorneys have described it is once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's too late. You can't undo it. But that's all a judge can do is say you're not to hear that. Motion to strike is granted. You're not to consider that in your deliberations. But we all know that they are. But again, the only thing that's saving about that, I guess, is it's kind of the best situation we could have is to have juries determine, your community members determine your fate. And you want those jurors to consider not only logic, but some feelings and some emotions.
Yeah.
And so we're all human beings, and rather than trusting it to a judge who might tend to be cold and unfeeling, maybe the jury is the most... Again, if you have a case, though, that's very, very law-oriented, you probably want a judge rather than a jury. You don't want to take the chance that the jury's going to misunderstand the law.
Yeah.
If the law's on your side.
If the law's on your side, of course. Add that caveat, too. But I think it shows the defense counsel or whatever, which either counsel from each side will say something completely outrageous, and the judge will, objection sustained. Are we? And the jury is assumed to disregard those remarks. But really, can we expect juries to disregard those remarks? I mean, they've been said in open court.
No, that's right. And the way some attorneys have described it is once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's too late. You can't undo it. But that's all a judge can do is say you're not to hear that. Motion to strike is granted. You're not to consider that in your deliberations. But we all know that they are. But again, the only thing that's saving about that, I guess, is it's kind of the best situation we could have is to have juries determine, your community members determine your fate. And you want those jurors to consider not only logic, but some feelings and some emotions.
Yeah.
And so we're all human beings.
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe. all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet, so make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
When you really want Italian food, you've got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. It's time to leave the cocoon. No more rain and cold weather. Enjoy the deliciousness of Columbo's. It's not just the delightful and tender steaks, the to-die-for fish specialties, Colombo family Italian specialties, along with jazz every night and the world's greatest meatballs. It's the feeling you get at Columbo's. It's easy, friendly, not phony, and so far away from Beverly Hills prices, it makes for, oh yes, experience. It's easy, and don't we all need a large dose of easy and enjoy? Don't deny yourself and the family. It really is Good Times Central. That's why you have got to get to Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, manja.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
And we are back here in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon Live, here on Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com. Talking about the death penalty. And Richard, I understand you have something you'd like to read.
Well, yes, we were talking about the death penalty moratorium, and the article talks about the DAs are calling for an end to the death penalty moratorium. But as they start their discussion, they say that when James Jordan was 7, his sister's murderer called the house to let the family know she wasn't coming home from school. I mean, that is so mean, adding to not only the savage murder, but to call the family and tell them such a cruel, mean thing. It's unbelievable. Anyway, and the boy also, when he's now a man, he remembers a Riverside police officer kneeling down and telling him everything would be okay, that justice would be served. But standing in the courtyard of the Riverside County District Attorney's Office Thursday, 40 years later, he said he is still waiting. We never got closure because Albert Brown, the murderer, continues to live and because justice has yet to be served.
So many families are waiting for justice. Over 787 people are on California's death row. But newly elected Governor Gavin Newsom, like you said, Richard, has put a moratorium. And like you said, Michelle Hansey, she's president of the Association of the Deputy District Attorneys of Los Angeles County, she is, and her members, prosecutors, are still seeking death penalties and death sentences in their cases, regardless of this moratorium. And one of the reasons, which I think is quite spurious, and Mrs. Hensley points this out, is what Gavin Newsom says, that the death penalty in California is racially biased. But yet, For example, there's plenty of high-profile murderers, white men, that are on death row right now, specifically Joseph James DeAngelo, who is known as the Golden State Killer, as well as another suspect known as the Michael Giaro, the Hollywood Ripper. And Mrs. DeAngelo had an interesting response to Gavin Newsom's take on whether or not this is a racially biased, death penalty is racially biased in California. She said, Garagio is a white dude. The Golden State Killer, he's a white guy who's a cop. And then she noted that many of the 24 death inmates who have exhausted all of their appeals and would be next in line for executions if they were proceeding were white men. That kind of puts the racial bias thing on its ear, doesn't it?
I think it does. And if you actually study this, you'll find that the people on death row are the people who have been adjudged to have committed these heinous crimes. And whether they be people of color or not, 98% of them were convicted by people of their same color.
Yeah.
So it's not as though white men are purposely looking to put black people on death row. That's simply not the case.
And also, this is regarding Governor Newsom. Other prosecutors have said, quote, he does not have the authority to tell prosecutors or even the Attorney General what the policy is going to be with respect to individual prosecutions. And you know who said that? Shipley Argwell of the ACLU.
Yes. Well, not only that, but you see what Mr. Nuisance is doing here. He's not just going against the legislature, and there might be a good faith dispute between one political branch and another, but he's actually going against the people.
The will of the people.
And was it 2016 where we reaffirmed that we want the death penalty in California?
There was actually two propositions on that ballot that year. Prop 62, which was an initiative to put a moratorium on the death penalty, that was defeated. And there was also Prop 66, which infected to limit the length of appeals that death penalty suspects had, and that passed.
Yes. So again, he is fighting the people now, and I think he's ripe for impeachment. You know, we're talking about impeaching the president. I think Mr. Newsom has stepped into it. I think he qualifies for impeachment. It couldn't be clearer that he's going against the will of the people.
Yeah, very well said, Richard. We'll be following this moving forward. You guys, thank you so much. It flew by. We're here in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon Live. All episodes available on YouTube. All episodes available on podcast as well. crntalk.com/podcast. Richard, thank you so much. And until next week.
And don't forget, a true patriot protects his country from his government.
Very well said, sir. Stay with us, you guys. We'll be back next week. More in the Legal Lounge. Richard Nixon Live here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, crntalk.com.
Which was most appropriate because that was your theme.
Are you tired of hearing your favorite talk radio show sound like this? What if you could hear your favorite shows in crystal clear, high-definition digital sound? Well, with CRN Digital Talk Radio's 6 channels of high-definition radio, you can now hear all of your favorite hosts like you've never heard them before in CRN HD. The difference is amazing. Catch your favorite political hosts like Dennis Prager, Tom Hartman, Barry Farber, and so many more. Entertainment and lifestyle programming like The Robert Conrad Show, The What's Cooking Show, and The What's Cooking on Wine Show, all in true CRN HD audio. Sports, business, travel, food, wine, politics, there is something for everyone, and it's all available in CRN High Definition Sound. Log on to www.crntalk for listings and information on all your favorite shows. That's www.crntalk.com.
The radio channels. The radio channels. CRN.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Ron DeRockstrup. A deal for the Senate Intelligence Committee.
President Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., has agreed to appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee behind closed doors for up to 4 hours in mid-June, according to 2 people familiar with the agreement who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. Last week, the committee subpoenaed Trump Jr. to go over answers he gave to the panel staff in a 2017 interview about the Russia investigation. Senator Richard Burr, the committee's chairman, has come under fire from President Trump and fellow Republicans for issuing the subpoena. But according to people familiar with Burr's remarks to a GOP luncheon last week, the subpoena was issued after Trump Jr. backed out of interviews twice. Mike Gracia, Washington.
The government plans on replacing barriers through 100 miles of the southern border in California and Arizona, including through a national monument and wildlife refuge. after the Department of Homeland Security waived environmental and dozens of other laws to build more barriers along the southern border. Environmental advocates who have sued to stop the construction of the wall say this latest plan will be detrimental to the wildlife and habitat in those areas. In Louisiana this afternoon, President Trump showcased his America First energy policy, highlighting his administration's efforts to increase liquefied natural gas exports and boost the country's energy infrastructure.
In Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, North Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and states all across our land, workers like you are lighting up our homes, powering our factories, and reducing energy costs for hardworking American families.
Prior to his speech, Mr. Trump toured the Sempra Energy $10 billion export terminal that will liquefy natural gas for storage and shipping. Tonight, he attends a private fundraising event in Metairie before returning to the White House. News and analysis at townhall.com.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 3366 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 3366. Enjoy!
The European Union's top court has ruled EU